What's up, everybody? Welcome to Once Upon a Tune, the podcast where we celebrate music
and the characters who make them. I am one of your hosts, Dev Jana, and with me, as always,
is Mr. Broke Boland. It's nice to see everybody today. I've had too much coffee, and we got the giggles, but we got to shake it out because we got serious stuff to talk about today.
Yes, our big idea today is music and movies, and this could be movies about music, movies based on a true story, documentaries, etc. Matt, do you want to kick us off?
Oh, also,
we're going to be doing
live shows, live DVDs,
yeah.
Whatever. Just the visualization of storytelling and music, not just the sound, which we primarily focus on.
This is also episode 15. I forgot to mention that, and we're going to break things up a little bit later with some talk about decades, which Matt, I'm going to blindside him with that. And then I've got something about some rhythms that we'll do in Dev's Deep Dive to take us home. But Matt, you want to start us off with some movie music stuff?
Yeah. So I thought about the idea of music and movies because the truth is I have always been what they call a visual learner. And it's very interesting because I always liked music growing up. Of course, I was destined to be a musician because I wasn't paying attention to anything else in school. And I noticed that it was biopics, documentaries, live shows, watching music happen. Not just going to live shows, but I mean watching stuff on TV and on YouTube a little later in life because I was around before YouTube. And that's what also always like set me going. I noticed that there were bands that I didn't really like or didn't give enough opportunity to. And then I'd watch a documentary about them, and next thing I know, they're one of my favorite bands. Just being able to put the story together visually with the music that's being made and learning more about the artists or just seeing what an artist looks like while they play versus just hearing them, I feel like is really an important part of specifically rock and roll, but music in general. Everyone knows rock and roll has the look, the vibe, the feel, everything that branched off of it. So with that said, I'm going to start by talking about a movie that kind of changed my life. I was a skateboarder. I loved punk rock, but like skate punk and stuff like that. It wasn't really about being into music. I had just started cracking into the Ramones. I wouldn't have considered myself a punk yet or anything like that. I was just a skater. And one time we had, back in the day, you could get free cable channels for a weekend. Like they had these movie channels. If you bought cable, there were more cable you could buy. And every now and then they'd give you weekend sneak peeks where you could just have that channel for a couple days and see if you wanted to buy it. So that was happening, and I'll never forget it. It was a very life-changing night. My mom was working third shift, so I was at the house by myself, and one of my favorite movies was Clerks. And this is before, like, this was a common thing. They were playing Clerks, the director's commentary. The commentary.
Ooh, interesting.
Which wasn't, we're talking like 2000, 2001. It wasn't as prominent of a thing as it is now. So the way this worked is they played Clerks the movie, and then it was on again right after, but with the commentary. So I watched Clerks twice, which was awesome in itself. But then afterwards, I saw this documentary coming up about this band, and it was called The Filth and the Fury, and it was directed by Julian Temple, and it was about the Sex Pistols. And man, when I say life-changing, I watched this documentary. I probably would have never listened to the Sex Pistols. I would have probably been like, oh, his voice is all weird. You know what I mean? At that point in my life. And once I started seeing it and the visual storytelling, and this dude, Julian Temple, was friends with them all the way back when they started. So he had all this early footage. Like, it's one of the best rock and roll documentaries I've ever seen. And the way it's presented is so cool that I was glued to the TV. I automatically was like, what is what's happening to me? You know what I mean? I felt the metamorphosis from skater to, oh, punk rock's going to be a big part of my life. You know what I mean?
Skater to skate punk.
Exactly. So yeah, the documentary is called The Filth and the Fury. Even if you don't like punk rock or don't care about that music, you should watch it because it's such an interesting story, and it's told through all the characters that are there in it. I'm trying to think of the name of it. They came out with a show. HBO came out with a show not that long ago about the Sex Pistols, which was like an actual TV show miniseries.
Like a fictionalization,
Yes,
or like
yes.
people acting. Okay, yeah, not a
Yes.
documentary. Gotcha.
Yeah, like a biopic show.
Yeah.
And bio show. But it's kind of based on this documentary, the storytelling style of this documentary, which is a real documentary with all the real footage and, you know, but it's funny because this biopic is more based off of the storytelling of the documentary than the actual like weird facts of this, because even though it was a documentary, it was still told in a very poetic way. You know what I mean? Like not a fictitious way, but it was just presented in a very unique way. Anyway, whole point is, like Clerks, it was on twice. It came on again right after it. I was glued to the TV, watched it the entire time. I'm like, oh my gosh, my life's changing. And then it said, there's an encore of it. Not director's commentary or anything. It just was on again. And while watching it the second time, I immediately started getting clothes out of my closet.
Cutting them up.
Cutting holes in them. I got into my mom's sewing stuff, and I started sewing things onto them and using safety pins. And it was, you know, it was very... yeah, I guess posery by this point, but the truth is that's how you're born, right?
That's the root.
You
That's
know?
the root. My love for you is burning truck
Berserker.
Would you like some making fuck berserker? Oh my god, I
Did
love
he
that
just
movie.
say making fuck?
Yeah, it's one of the talk about a transformative like time in your life.
What a night, though.
Yeah,
I watched
yeah.
Clerks. I watched the commentary of Clerks. I watched Filth and the Fury, and then I watched Filth and Fury again while becoming a punk.
Yeah,
like that was a big 4-movie span in
Yeah.
one night.
Yeah, exactly. There are only a handful of those evenings where like your entire life is separated to before and after it.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's one of them for you. That was a really interesting one. I think while we're talking about kind of historical documentaries, I want to bring up the Decline of the Western Civilization movies. Because
course.
obviously the punk one was really big. I think that was the first one was on punk.
Yes.
But the second one on metal completely blew my mind when I was a kid. Like I also I don't know what year that came out, but I was either when I found out about it or when it came out, I was really young. We're talking 80s, and I just didn't know that there were people who lived life like that. You know, like it just complete. I was like, oh, there's a path to do that. We were actually talking about this before we hit record about how Matt and I both, you know, made the. What do you say? I made the decision to be a musician,
And I know my position.
Yeah, it's like that. There's a reality. Like you make that decision, you live your life that way, and that was transformative for me to be able to do that. For those of you who don't know, the Decline of the Western Civilization was a series of documentaries that were specifically about music, like aggressive music for young people, kind of centered around the late 70s, early 80s.
The second one came out in 88. Sorry.
88. Yeah, so I was 11 years
81
old.
was the first one.
81, yeah. So like, yeah, I guess early 80s to mid 80s. The first one's about punk, the second one's about metal, and really just kind of, for those of us who liked movies, like I know I was really young, but I've always loved movies. It really kind of bridged that gap because those two worlds really hadn't talked to one another. You know, like no one was making a documentary about something like that at the time. No one else was doing it. So I thought that those were really really impactful for an entire generation, of my age. And I guess while we're at it, I want to talk about like how biopics do a lot more than stretch the truth sometimes. And in particular, when I was young, I was a massive Doors fan. Like once I found the Doors, I was like, oh wow, there's no band that sounds like, there is no band that sounds like the Doors still. And when I watched the movie, I didn't realize how far Oliver Stone was always willing to go away from the truth. And then later when I watched JFK, I was like, oh, okay, he's just making shit up at this point. But I didn't really know that. At the time there was no internet, so like there's no like you now easily can read Ray Manzarek's book, or you can go and watch interviews with him and see how viscerally he hates how his buddy was portrayed in that. And he was like, that never happened, that never happened. And those were the character defining attributes to Morrison to me when I was young. And it actually tainted the way that I felt about the Doors for years. And I actually, when I saw the movie, I stopped listening to the Doors for a while because I couldn't get some of those images and fictionalized actions out of my mind. And it's really difficult to blur the line, or to see where the line is blurred between true story based on a true story and inspired by a true story, and a lot of the work that happens here. The other one I want to bring up is I adored Bohemian Rhapsody. A lot of people didn't, but I love Queen, and I will take anything that has anything to do with them. We should do an entire show about Brian May at some point in time. Transformative creature, like not just a landmark guitarist, like a transformative creature in human nature. Like really an amazing guy. But I was watching that movie and I was like, wow, who was that guy? The character that Mike Myers played, who like passed up on signing Queen and then was listening to them and was like all depressed that he didn't sign him. And then I was like, who was that? I didn't know about this guy. And I went and looked him up. I was like, oh, they just made him up.
Yeah.
That character he's a character. He's not a person. And like kind of a personification of a bunch of things. And that's something to keep in mind when you're watching these. Because if it accentuates your understanding of it, I'm all for it. But if it does like kind of, in the case of me with the Doors, if it like rocks the boat in terms of your understanding of an artist that you love, I would say like go check out how factual the actual movie was, because a lot of the stuff it can really hurt your perception of an artist.
Let me chime in on this. So that's what makes it weird, right? So you have this would you call it the poetic version of reality versus the factual version of reality?
I call it stylized, yeah. It might be stylized, not be poetic.
I call it kayfabe. Like if you're a wrestling fan, what kayfabe is when wrestling characters, even off screen, walk around and try and get you to believe professional wrestling. Like you believe that they're their character. The Undertaker is this dead man. That's what the term kayfabe means in wrestling. And it's like you have the kayfabe version of what a band wants you to believe it is, or whatever, and then you have the reality. And the truth is, like with the Doors movie, you bringing that up, it goes both ways though, because I can tell you right now, I wasn't the biggest Doors fan. Then I saw the movie and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, and then I became a Doors fan, and because of that movie, and it's just kind of ridiculousness. I mean, it's intense. Because I liked it and saw it at an influential time in my life, I got into the Doors because of it. And then backtracked and learned all of it. But without that movie, I don't know if I would have ever really gotten into the Doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're in agreement on that. Like, kind of what I'm saying is if it helps you enjoy the music, good. If you find it pulling yourself away from music that you already dig, go find out what the truth is.
Exactly.
I think it's worth doing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the beauty of some of these reimagined of reality, reimagining of reality movies is kind of whatever it takes to get you into the music.
Right.
Period.
All right.
But I think that's going to come up quite a bit.
Yeah, and since we've romped through some of our history, let's take a quick break here and talk about some decades. So I've got a wheel here that we're going to spin, and that's the 10s and the 20s and the aughts of the 10s and the 20s of the 2000s, by the way, not like the 1910s.
I'm over here like ready to go.
Well, if you want it to be the 1910s. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the wheel, and then Matt, tell me your favorite or least favorite thing about that decade.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. The aughts, or as we used to call them, the naughties.
So wait, this is the 2000s.
2000s.
Okay. And we're talking like 2000 to 2010, I'm assuming. That's the decade?
Yep.
My least favorite thing or my favorite thing?
Whatever you want.
I mean, that was an interesting time because that's when I was really in my own world. That's when I started playing and songwriting, and I was so gung ho into 50s rock and roll that like I didn't pay attention to a lot that was happening. But the things that I did pay attention to that really sparked me at that time period was Jack White and the White Stripes. I thought, oh, you know, this is the Willy Wonka of music. Like, who is this guy? I'm obsessed. He's doing for blues what I want to be doing with rockabilly, and that's, taking the standards, turning it up a notch, and figuring out a whole new way to do it and reinventing. So, and I got to say, same thing. Like that whole era right there was kind of cool. You had like the Arctic Monkeys and the Strokes, and I think that was one of the last like real pushes of garage rock. The Black Keys. Who else came out right around then that was in that same vein? I know there was a bunch of them.
There was a bunch.
Wolf Mother, like.
I've
someone's got opinions.
I do. I've seen Wolf Mother live 3 times, and to be fair, I've actually liked them more as we've moved forward through time. But yeah, that era was really interesting because we were also getting like MGMT and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's when
that time, very different production styles. I do want to note that what was the album with Icky Thump on it? Or no, maybe it was the one prior to that where whichever one it was. I want to say it was 2003 that the White Stripes put out. It might have been Elephant.
Was it White Blood Cells?
Yeah, I think it was White Blood Cells.
That's one of the albums I forgot to talk about in our greatest albums. I can listen to that album all the way through.
Yeah, that's a no skip album. We definitely there were a few that I forgot too. We'll get back to that. But that kind of also launched the re-interest in recording in analog. I remember going over to a friend of mine's house and he was like, dude, you got to hear the drums on this album. We went over and we were just like, holy crap, what did they do? And it was like, the recording analog. And up until that point, everyone was pushing for fidelity, and the way you would get that at the time, we were recording on ADATs, like literally, it was like we didn't, laptop recording wasn't even a thing. I once got my ADAT tapes back from a studio that recorded one of my old band stuff, and they were like doing a fire sale, getting rid of all their stuff because they were switching over to analog, right? It's like, but Jack White is still spearheading that by printing more vinyl than anybody else in the US, and asking the big record companies to invest in it. So like that was a really transformative time. That was a great call.
That album was the still, or however you say it. It's like a French word. It's an art style, but they recorded it in their living room.
Yeah.
Self-recorded it, self-produced it with a reel-to-reel, 4-track.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I was just in your living room looking at your reel-to-reel.
I do have one. I'm learning how to use it. More to come on that one.
I'm gonna give me a spin and we'll see what where are we coming up on. Oh, the 2010s. 2010s is a real interesting time for me. Like, all right, yeah. So I actually just brought this up on another series that I do called "It's Just My Opinion," but you're wrong if you disagree. And I actually really liked dubstep, and that surprised a lot of people. I think that it was a lot more interesting than people thought it was because it's my buddy Sharif, one of my favorite people. People used to think we were brothers, and we spent that much time together. And he was not a Primus fan. The first time I played him Primus, he was like, "This makes me feel like I'm a giant robot breaking shit." And that's what dubstep absolutely, like in a visceral way, connected to those parts of your brain. But what I think was really interesting about what they were doing at that point in time was like the progression of music. You got like your basic rhythms. We'll get into that, and then you get melody, and then you get harmony. And the melody and harmony are all based on these 12 celestial tones that Pythagoras gave us, right? But like, even if you start with the pentatonic and you just got 5 notes like the Romans used to do, like it's limited to these tones, and then you can get microtonal, like in Jean de Poitrine is doing a lot of really high visibility stuff with that right now. But like Turkish music has had that, Indian music has had that for a really long time. But there were still like finite notes, and dubstep was just going like in between the notes in ways that like they reacted with your brainstem. Like my I was like, oh, that's different. Whether or not you appreciate it, like it was a clear um, like evolution of modern music. Like when at the time when we were listening to it, we're like, this is what people in the '80s thought the music in the future would sound like. It was like, oh, we got there.
Kinda. Yeah, we
You
did
know,
it.
like, we got
Well,
there, and I thought that that was a really important time.
I have an interesting relationship. So I worked at the uh, number one music venue in town at that point, and we had dubstep night in 2010, 11, 12, whatever. I can't say I didn't like it, but what I can say is I did not like the culture behind it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I
That
feel like
that
that about
that's
a lot.
what, and it
Yeah.
ruined it for me because
Well,
that's all I can think of when I
right.
hear it.
Yeah, and I think that that's an absolutely valid kind of approach to it. And in retrospect, all that's eventually going to be left is the recordings.
Absolutely.
Those moments are gonna fade away. I'm old enough that like I went to raves in the '90s, right? And I was like, similarly, I was like, this is really fun, but I just could not buy into the culture. Like I was much more of a '90s hippie clearly than I was like a rave kid. But like, yeah, like I felt the same way. I couldn't separate the culture from the music. And in retrospect, I think the things that I liked the most about rave culture was what was happening with the show. There was some really cool projection stuff.
Yeah.
My MFA was in 3D animation special effects, and that was one of the first places I saw like 3D graphics presented in a way that wasn't in, like an airplane crashing in Air Force One or something. You know what I mean? Let's see what's up for Matt next. We got oh oh I thought you were gonna get the '70s. You got the '80s.
Okay. Can I just say that I'm very disappointed that the 50s were not included on this or ever? They're
Yeah,
never included. We got the
yeah. Well,
classics from the 60s to the 90s, never the 50s. And let me tell you how much that pisses me off because without the 50s, there are no 60s, 70s, 80s. I said what I said.
yeah. I mean that's how numbers work. Like
That's how numbers work. But no, so 80s for years and years and years, and this is probably because I'm just a product of my time. I was born in 1986. I always said I don't really like 80s music. That obviously has changed immensely, but that probably took me the longest time to get there. Um, uh, with 80s because I didn't like the production and the airiness. I didn't like a lot of the you're gonna get mad, but I'm just speaking in turn. I didn't like the Cure and how that kind of music, all the I know. Calm down. I like the Cure now. We're good. I had to get there. We grow, right? Literally huffing and puffing over there. But I did not like. I didn't like the hair bands. I didn't like the new wave and all the synth sounds. I really enjoyed raw music. And the 80s was not a big time for raw music. It was a time for raw ideas, but not raw music. That being said, I've grown, I've matured. I can appreciate almost everything that I just said I didn't like at that point, including some hair bands.
dude. So
I don't hate Van Halen, dude.
well, actually,
Throw back
I,
to the last episode.
yeah, I don't. And to be clear, I don't like love Van Halen, but like I can see why
You
when
didn't.
Tom Morello was asked like what's the greatest live band you've ever seen, he said Van Halen, hands down. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can see why some people feel that way. I also see why some people would feel that way about Kiss. I'm not one of those people. I also want to say, as someone who, I was in like my single years during the '80s for most of it, and double digits towards the end of it. There was a lot of really cool stuff happening in metal at the time that doesn't like that doesn't that has survived, but is like harder to find. And you're right. I completely agree with you in the overuse of synths, but it's also like it's so it so perfectly fits with all the like day glow green and like the color schemes that were going on at the time, like the pinks and the Valley Girl stuff. It so fits with it that it becomes this vibe that the weekend is tapping into now, in a way
Absolutely. And
that like it doesn't sometimes I hear his stuff and I'm like, is this old and I just didn't know about it. But yeah, it's really odd. I also got to point out that there were that a lot of people just don't listen to, like, you'll hear Duran Duran and not listen to them, but they're a freaking incredible band.
they are.
Try playing the bass line for Rio sometime. Like, good luck with that. The stuff
So,
is killing it. All right,
so
go ahead.
you brought up something that I have to speak about because I've always had this thought and this theory, and we've touched base on it before. But the thing about decades, it's crazy. Going back every 10 years, you can from 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That's 50 years right there. You can see and hear the 50s. You can see and hear the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. You could see and hear them. There's a visual style. There are fads that popped up that just completely defined those decades. Once you get to 2000, everything's the same. When I say everything's the same, that doesn't mean there's no more creativity or anything. But the truth is, like, there's no. We talked about it before. There was no Nirvana. There was no Nirvana. There was no that one band that everybody was on board with, or you know what I mean. No central connection. All of a sudden, everybody broke off into their own tribes and found what they could. And I mean, it's all internet based,
I was about to say they found what they could because they could find it.
Exactly.
For the first time that stuff was becoming available. When I saw my first YouTube video in 2004, I was like, this is it. Like, this is where everything's going to be here. Everyone can get whatever they want whenever they want it. And then just very quickly, YouTube, where we are now, we're posting a long form video. We're already about half an hour in, right?
Yep.
YouTube started out, you couldn't post a video longer than 10 minutes.
I remember.
And then, yeah, which is weird because YouTube actually started as kind of short form media, then became long form media. And then we got like TikToks and shorts is going back to even shorter form media. This is really really interesting concept.
And you know why you couldn't do anything longer than 10 minutes? Servers couldn't handle that, man.
Yeah,
you had
exactly.
dial-up internet. You wanted to watch an hour-long movie. You better have 4 hours to wait for it to load.
Yeah, my very first computer had, well, not my very first, the first one that like I had 100 megs of hard drive space. And if you look up my old YouTube channel, I was uploading stuff as early as 2005, and it's in 240p because I couldn't save and that was still like half my hard drive.
I feel like this pen has more memory. Pen has more memory than that.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's the world that we were living in. Like, hard drive space was a lot more expensive then. RAM was a lot more expensive, and no one could actually. Yeah.
And this little tiny thing, 128 gigs on this little itty bitty thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or even smaller with these guys. What is this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is also. I just dropped 128 gigs of stuff.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, that was more than all of YouTube in 2004. But yeah, that was a really interesting time. I also got the 80s, so I don't think we need to kind of really discuss it more.
Well, no, I do want to discuss it because there's a reason it landed on it. I told you what I really didn't like about the 80s and how that shifted, but you actually were way more prominent in the 80s. So I am curious. You talk highly a lot about what you like about the 80s. Like, I'm curious to hear the stuff that you really did loathe and might still loathe.
Oh,
as far as,
yes,
because you lived it, you were there.
Yeah. So I mean, that's totally fair. And so like, to be clear, like, I've always been a fan of music. Like, I'm primarily a guitarist. I love bands and stuff, but I've always been a fan of like just music in general.
Yeah.
So I also I really liked, I liked Bobby Brown. I liked Paula Abdul, and there are a lot of times when people say like, oh, that corny opposites attract song. I'm like, dude, that song was awesome. And like, I'm an animation fan. And so like, there was a lot of stuff that was going on that a lot of people don't like that I enjoyed. Okay, so like I want to be clear about that. But like as far as things that I didn't like, you nailed it with a lot of the production stuff. And I will say that I live here in the Twin Cities. I'm gonna move my thing a little bit so you can see my Prince tip trick up there,
Nice.
right? Like massive fans. Part of how I even ended up here as a kid, running dancing around in my garage listening to Prince. I was like, what is this magical land where they, like the rain is purple, like it was and then I became a Timberwolves fan. You can see some of my Timberwolves stuff over here from our playoff run. We just clinched our fifth straight playoff berth, by the way, yesterday with our win. But anyway, long story short, we like there was a lot about that production style that I still can't stand.
Yeah.
Specifically, the drum sounds from that era. I love the gated snare sound that is endemic of the time that Prince loved, but the way that the kick drum sounds really sterile to me in a lot of this stuff. And there was technology was going to a place where I talked about this earlier. We were kind of getting out of it into the aughts, and Jack White had a lot to do with it, where we were confusing fidelity with quality. And this happens with technology all the time. A lot of people watching this probably don't know that I was in the video game industry for a long time, and games do the same thing all the time. It's like, oh, look at all the hairs moving on our character. It's like, yeah, but is the game any fun?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why punk was always so important to me. And I feel actually similarly, a lot of the metal bands now, when I listen to them, I really don't care for the production. I would love to hear it remixed and remastered. Um, but the production in the '80s, there is a specific. As soon as I say it, you're going to hear it in your brain. There's a specific saxophone sound in the '80s
uh,
that sounds like what Cheese Whiz tastes like if someone pissed in your Cheese Whiz.
mm-hmm.
It's just like
I
what
know
it,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, like I just don't understand the choices that were happening. So I mean I kind of do because that was the first time that was possible. Or uh, you know, I personally like last night. We played a show where there was a back line, and I just plugged my guitar into what they had. I will make it work. Just okay. There's the third. Whatever. It's like real simple, and I love that. At the same time, the guitar sound on "Owner of a Lonely Heart" is one of a kind and would have only happened if people were trying to see how far they could push a guitar sound in the studio. And so like that's a totally that flips the script in terms of what it sounds like. You brought up The Cure earlier. I love The Cure. In fact, the
I
first
know.
song I ever played with other people was a Cure song, A Forest. My friend Matt's older brother taught us how to play A Forest so that we could play music together because we just didn't know what we were doing. And I go back and I listen to a lot of that stuff, and I'm like, oof, I hope they remix and remaster this soon. Some of that stuff, it's really like Disintegration is. Oh, I cannot believe I did not bring that up in our No Skips album. That is a no skip album.
Well, it
Absolutely.
sounds like we're gonna have to have a round
Uh,
two of no
yeah,
skip.
we are, and but there's a lot of production choices on that I don't really dig. I will say that I love the way that a lot they treated a lot of the bass tones at that point in time in production. But yeah, I thought that there was a move towards pop in the '80s in popular music.
Mm-hmm.
Like the what we think of as the like like the Hollywood music system or whatever, like that moved in a direction that was towards like kind of cheesy pop in a way that I didn't really like during a lot of that. But
Well,
overall, I actually like, my first concert was Aerosmith and Skid Row. And that was like I don't know if you can get a rock show like that anymore. And
no.
Skid Row was always my favorite of the like kind of hair bands. If you listen to them now, it's like yeah, no one else like Poison would have never played Slave to the Grind. You know what I mean? Like that, they were like really good musicians, and they were really rocking and going pretty hard. But a lot of people were trying to do the opposite. That was the beginning of like corporate rock.
Yeah.
Like we needed something to follow up disco, and like corporate rock kind of. Like we wouldn't have I don't know Nickelback without what was going on in the corporate rock world in the '80s, and that's something that like if a band exists because there's a gap in the market and not because some people got together either because they had respect for each other creatively I'm trying to think of one of the super groups like Audio Slave would have that's not really an organic band. They were like Rage
Yeah.
Against the Machine were like, hey, we want to play with Chris Cornell. I got no problems with that, but it wasn't like, ooh, we're going to sell a lot of Nikes and Sony computers if we create a band to do that. And so like that approach seemed to have happened in my lifetime. I don't remember it happening prior. with rock and roll, I should say, prior to
Well,
the 80s.
and
Something I didn't do.
I think one thing that's tough about the 80s is it might be, at least in my, again, it's my opinion, my perception because of when I was born and how old I am now and what I've been through musically. The 80s feels like the only decade in music that things truly aged bad. Like I think about 50s rock and roll and it still sounds cool. I think of
Yeah.
60s music. It still sounds cool. Is there cheese? Yeah, but it still sounds cool. 70s, same thing. I think that the 80s, I'm a huge Springsteen fan. We talk about it, but man, those
they're,
keys.
they're slamming through
If he
the.
didn't have those keys and some of those saxophone solos, how much more timeless would that stuff be? Like Born in the USA is a fantastic song, no matter what anyone says. The production on it ages it so bad that I never want to listen to it.
Yeah,
The words are
I can see
great.
that.
You know
I
what I
can see
mean?
that.
I can't think of another decade in music, because 90s had this cheese feel to it, but there was this kind of coolness to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where
there was an edge that came through. And to be clear, obviously how old, this is the unk talking here. Like the '90s is my favorite like era of rock. It was the last time that the electric guitar ruled the world. Is
yeah,
kind of how I look at it. But I also want to point out that like being I've talked about how important Run DMC is to me, right? And being like a hip hop guy or a kid who loved hip hop. I'm much more in the rock world, but I've been a fan of
right.
hip hop and seen it live my whole life, right? It's hard to overstate how awesome the '80s was. Like after establishing a foothold in the '70s, when you the difference between Grandmaster Flash uh, and even like Rakim kind of early on, and then KRS-One doing a song with REM at the end of the '80s, like that is a really massive move into the like. You can see Blondie doing Rapture and going, like, okay, I can see how this would open a bunch of doors. But then we ended the '80s with NWA, like it there was a shift in the '90s with hip hop when it really became kind of the institution that is continuing, that moved away from a lot of like really amazing female artists. I think people forget about Lil Kim, but like I grew up with MC Light and Salt and Peppa and Queen Latifah. I've talked about Queen Latifah a ton of times on
Oh
here,
yeah.
like, and then the bitches, boats and blunts era kind of like edged a lot of that out of hip hop for a while. I think that we started to see it come back, certainly in the underground, at the time. But like that was hard for me to kind of swallow. One of my favorite quotes. This is again from the rock world, but similarly when Joan Jett was being told when she was young, you can't be a rocker. Girls don't play rock and roll. And she was like, you what do you mean I can't be a musician? Like some of the top violinists and harpists and cellists are musicians. I can't do this. And it felt like
Watch
that
me.
attitude. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we should do a whole episode on Joan Jett. One of my favorites. But like, absolutely, it felt like the '90s started edging, like um, women out of being at the forefront, which was really weird for me, and I think we still see some of the vestiges of that now.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back into the big idea because I think
I
I
don't
want
know.
to.
I feel like we just changed big ideas.
We
Like
did. Well, that
I
was
think
another
that
big
talk
idea.
was a good yeah.
But
Um
let's get back to music because I want to talk about Spinal Tap, which is one of the most important movies. Like, not only do people still say does that amp go to 11, but I think people forget that I'm not sure if it's the exact root. There's discussion about this, but it is the basis of the current popular opinion and the use of the terms both rockumentary and mockumentary. They both started with that, which is incredible. Uh, R.I.P. Rob Reiner. It's a real. If you folks aren't into that or don't know about that, like feel free to look it up. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's incredibly sad. And he seemed like a sweet person who really wanted to work with people and do kind of the right thing
Incredible
for them.
artist
Yeah, incredible artist, and
in what he
always
does.
he was outspoken, and even like the lineage is there was just really sad. I want to talk about. I want to say going back to the '90s. This was early '90s. There was the second Spinal Tap album came out, and if you don't remember when CDs before they were just in jewel cases, they used to come in a tall plastic or cardboard box, specifically so you could put them in like the record, like they would
Yep.
stand out in a record case. and there was a move against that to save paper. And Spinal Tap put out their second album in, I want to say, 91 or something like that. It was called Break Like the Wind. And yeah, it's so good.
They're
it's really
so good, dude.
It's so good. And it came in an extra long box. Except it didn't actually come in an extra long box. That was just part of the marketing that they did at the time. But when they were on the press tour for that, and I want to say it was Guitar for the Practicing Musician, they interviewed Nigel Tufnell, the guitarist for Spinal Tap, not the actor. They interviewed Nigel Tufnell, and I was a kid, so I didn't know that he was not a real guitarist. He talked about going to Africa.
Let me interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
What's the actor's name?
I don't remember.
Exactly.
Yeah, because he's Nigel Tufnell. But in the interview, he talked about like traveling to Africa and meeting a tribe of people who only play the drums with their nose, and like it was just like this ridiculous spinal. I was like, what is up with this guy? And then I looked up Spinal Tap. I was like, oh, it's a joke. This was the first rockumentary. This is the mockumentary, and I think I rented it that weekend from Blockbuster to watch it, and like it'll always be in my mind. But that's a landmark, actual like cinema event. It's not just like a thing for music.
No, I couldn't agree more. Well, I have to talk about again, not necessarily about it is about a specific band. I'm not going to get too in depth because we've already talked about this band. We've already talked about how incredible they are. So the reason I wear fedora, the Blues Brothers. When I was a little kid, my grandfather rented the Blues Brothers. My grandfather played guitar in bands when he was young. Or actually, not when he was young. I don't think he started playing guitar until he was in his 40s. But
awesome. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. But when I was a little kid, he was playing in bands and stuff. And I only saw him a handful of times. He was doing like country stuff. But he rented the Blues Brothers, and we watched it. And it was, again, one of those life-changing, I absolutely love this. And to this day, it's why I wear this exact style hat 24/7,
So you were like a pre-hipster.
I guess so.
Because I didn't want to say it, but that was one of the things that I hated about the 2010s when we brought the 2010s. I was like, ugh. All the short brim fedoras came out. I'm an Indiana Jones fedora guy myself. I'll put mine on sometimes.
Well, this is a trilby.
Cool. I'm sure that's important. That's good for you.
Shut up.
The Blues Brothers has, and I actually want to talk to you about doing a big idea about this. Like we'll probably do an episode on this. It has a feel of being very triumphant that a lot of things don't have. It doesn't feel forced. It should feel very corporate, but it doesn't.
Blues Brothers 2000 did.
Exactly. That's what I was about to get at. It's like then you see the sequel and you go, oh, okay, like this is kind of part of a bland corporate mechanism. Mm-hmm. But the original, it just feels so triumphant from beginning to end and fun, and the car stuff in it was unexpected when I was a kid, but is absolutely incredible.
The most cars wrecked in a movie.
Until the second one. Yeah,
until Blues Brothers 2000.
Exactly. Which is pretty incredible.
But so I'm going to bring it back real quick to
Sure.
To an actual documentary, and it's this one that I'm holding in my hand right now.
Chuck Berry, Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll.
Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll. It came out the year I was born, 1986. It was Chuck's 60th birthday. So they followed him for like a year, and Keith Richards put a super group together, and it's all based around a concert. There was actually 2 concerts that they chopped up and filmed in the same place. It's all centered around Chuck's personality, and it goes through the history of him and stuff, but it really follows him around. You get to know Chuck Berry. Not all legends are great people.
Most aren't.
And you can't say most, but we could say a lot. Because there's some great legends that are great people. Don't tell me to name any right now. We had a whole thing about that.
We did.
All right. Anyway, Yeah, check
Link in the description.
yeah, check the previous episodes. But this documentary is super cool because what it is, it's Keith Richards put together a band consisting of Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, Etta James, Julian Lennon, and Linda Ronstadt, and a couple other incredible musicians. And they were all going to play Chuck Berry's 60th birthday show. And the whole documentary leads to like the rehearsals, how difficult Chuck was to work with. There's all kinds of interviews with Keith Richards and with all these other people. There's interviews with Jerry Lee Lewis in there. There's interviews with Bruce Springsteen where it's really cool. He actually talks about, so Chuck Berry didn't travel with a band or an amp. He traveled in his Cadillac with his guitar in a case and would show up to venues that he would get $11,000 and tell the owner, the venue owner, exactly what kind of amp he needed on stage and to get him a backing band. And that was it. The backing band had to learn all of Chuck Berry's songs, and he would walk up on stage, not even tune, plug in, and just start playing. And all these musicians just had to hang on for dear life. And he did that for years. And if the band was good, he'd give $1,000 back to the venue owner for the band. So he guaranteed made $10,000. If his backing band sucked, he'd make $11,000. And he would just travel by himself all the time. No entourage, no nothing. Just him and his Cadillac with his guitar. But Bruce Springsteen tells this awesome story in this documentary about how that happened to him once. Like they got to be Chuck Berry's backing band.
Oh, interesting.
And he was like, it was terrifying because we were like, oh, we know all Chuck Berry's songs. You know, it's Bruce Springsteen. And when Chuck got on stage, he didn't call out anything. He didn't call out keys. He didn't call out songs. He would just start playing, and you had to go, oh my God, oh my gosh, oh my God. And Springsteen tells this really cool story of like him having to be in that position and do it as an established musician and still being so caught off guard. But anyway, if you get a chance, I got the box set. It comes with a whole bunch of DVDs, and it comes with 4 DVDs, and the other 3 DVDs are all the interviews that are in the movie, but the full complete interviews. So there's full complete interviews with Springsteen, Jerry Lee Lewis, Keith Richards, Robert Cray. It's awesome. So I always want to point that one out there because I think it's one of those hidden gems, and it really lets you get inside. You know, they go to his house and he gives them a tour, but you get to see how difficult of a human he was, but also how talented he was, because he was even the way he talks,
unimpeachably, yeah, like absolutely.
Even the way he talks and presents himself, he's such a good storyteller and such a good, just such an artist, but also such a dick. Like,
also,
you know what I mean?
Also POS, yeah.
Yeah.
So in my band that I had in the 90s into the early aughts, my drummer got his snare from a guy who played for Chuck Berry a couple times. I can't remember his name. It was T something. It wasn't T-Pain. I wanted to say T-Pain, but wouldn't that be amazing if T-Pain played the drums for Chuck Berry?
I would assume that's not true.
But he said the first day that he played, it was the same thing. He's like, Chuck came in, got up on stage, just started playing, and we just had to play with him. And the snare in particular has this story where he's like, at the end of the second song, he's like, you were scared to add anything. It had to be perfect. He's like, at the end of the last song, he said, boom, ba-boom. And Chuck turned around and was like, I will kick you off the motherfucking stage right now. Like just adding, something that most people wouldn't even like think about.
Yep.
Like he was that fierce, which I thought was, and we had that snare. That was the snare in the band. That was the snare that was in the van in the trailer for like a year and a half, which was pretty good. So I want to talk about. There's so many. We're already creeping up on time, so like
we might have to do a 2-parter on this one.
Yeah, I want to tell a great story about the Randy Rhoads documentary that's on Prime. I hope it's still on Prime. I don't know, but it was a couple years ago. It's incredible. First of all, I talk about him all the time in terms of being one of the most talented and influential guitarists of all time, but I have a really interesting connection to it. So I was watching it, and my wife, sat down on the couch next to me. We were watching it, and She grew up in Florida, and her father worked for a place that built tour buses. And we're there, and we're watching. And for those of you who don't know, he was Ozzy's guitarist. Ozzy was sleeping in the tour van. One of the guys on tour, who was no longer licensed to fly, was taking people up in an airplane, like doing tricks, and was pissing people off, and took Randy and I want to say it was the hairstylist up, and there's supposedly video of them arguing with him, and he clipped Ozzy's tour bus, and the plane cartwheeled into the house of the guy who where they were staying.
Didn't the van break down and they had to park it to get it repaired at this place? Yeah,
exactly.
And they were bored, so there was a plane there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the buses broke down, and so they took it to the place where to be repaired, because the place that built it, which was my wife's dad's old boss. And when we were watching she didn't know this either. And we're watching the video, and she goes, "I know that. I've been to that house. That's so, she's like, it was my dad's boss's house. We used to hang out there," and had no idea. She didn't listen to metal or anything. It was a really interesting moment.
Wow.
But more than anything, like I brought this up previously, like go back and for those of you who are guitarists, like go back and listen to what he was doing, and don't just listen to it as a modern fan. Like try listening to it and going, okay, who was doing anything like this prior? And it's really difficult to see any evidence of anyone with that depth of capability on the instrument, and really like I know they play up, just in general, people play up the Eddie Van Halen versus Randy Rhoads comparison all the time, and it's like those are
apples and oranges.
Yeah, those are apples and hamburgers, man. It was like
Right.
completely different things. And I think that Randy is like, he also gets to be, unfortunately, because he died so young, 20, didn't even make it to 27. I think he was 25. He's kind of like this shining white knight of heavy metal, like it was a consummate, hilarious, nice kid. I think people forget that he was Ozzy's best friend too, like he was this really nice guy who like was best friends with his mom and would take guitar lessons from other people while he was on tour. Like there are no, leather pants, drink too much, smash up your hotel room stories about him. Unfortunately, not only did he not live to be to be old enough to have done that, but like we're talking about a time after Ozzy was biting heads off of bats and
Yeah.
shit, and he was there being like a real steady, positive influence in Ozzy's life. I think that in that sense, he probably really helped. You hear Sharon talk about him every now and then now. It's like, yeah, I think that like he really helped get Ozzy to the point where he could have lived all the way through and given us all the great music that we got. So I just wanted to talk about that.
I don't
Movie.
think he
Totally
ever
worth
would
a
have
watch.
switched. I don't think he would have went anywhere.
Who?
Oh, I think they would have been a tag team
Oh, yeah.
up until one of them naturally went.
Yeah, I agree. And
Well-
that movie is incredible to watch, and it is also just amazing to see how much impact some of these absolute, like, legitimate rock stars have so quickly and so early in their life. Like he had an opportunity, he took it, and he really like ran away with it in a way that is incredible to watch. What else you got, Matt? You got some more props?
I think no. I was gonna say I think we should extend this, but I do think that there's one more that we can both talk about to put a cap on this.
What
And
you got?
it might be one of the most important music documentaries of all time, and that's Woodstock.
Yeah,
I
was actually gonna bring that up.
Yeah. Well, that's all I was saying. I think this is one that we can both. This is what we go out on. I mean, everything from the artistic direction of the way it was shot to the three
Yeah, the
three
multiple
camera
screens,
thing. I
yeah.
mean,
So you see the big rock star stuff. You see the naked hippies walking around at the same time. Yeah, it's really it's really
you get
amazing.
a sense, like, how intuitive was it for somebody to be like, this is gonna, it was never expected to be what it was,
Right.
it was expected to be big, but never what it was. How incredible is it that it got captured to the extent it got captured in the way it got captured? Like it was serendipitous. You know what I mean? Like, thank God we have that. That's awesome. Like, what a piece of history.
Yes, and not just captured, but imagine editing that on the stuff that they had to work, the technology that they had at the
I
time,
can't.
lining up the those videos, printing it, getting, and the audio mix is great on it. Like
Awesome.
the audio is as good as you could possibly sound considering what they had at the time. Um, Sometime like I know I don't talk about it very much, but like Santana is a really great band, and they got to play Woodstock without having an album out yet, and that like we've got one of the very first Santana performances recorded by because Bill Graham, the great Bill Graham, one of my favorite interviews with him. They asked him, "So what do you do?" And his answer was, "Primarily, I'm in public assembly." That was his answer. He wasn't like I throw rock concerts. He was like primarily I'm in public assembly, and like I think it's really important to try to bring the current culture that is happening with kids and with rock and roll to the masses. And like his involvement with that was tangential. They were just like, hey, can you help? We're throwing this big thing. It's getting huge. He's like, I'll help as long as Santana gets involved. And that's my segue to in a previous episode I had Matt. React to Santana live in Mexico City. It's called Sacred Fire. It's a fantastic recording. And after that, I would say check out Supernatural Live. It's called Supernatural Live, an evening with Santana and friends. And Supernatural was the album where he kind of reinvented himself and had a bunch of
I was
collabs,
just say, is
which is
that
now like a
early
standard
2000
thing.
or late
Yeah,
90s?
yeah. I want to say it's 2002 even. It's
Yeah.
like very, very shortly after. But the majority of people who played on the album and they did one show with the band and them coming in and out. And it's a fantastic album or fantastic recording of that time. And if you're not super into Santana, it helps because you have all these guests coming in one after another, and it kind of gives you a sense of
If you're not into
where things are going to go.
if you're not into Santana, just watch the Woodstock performance, man.
Yeah,
That
that's
drum
not.
solo. That drum solo. Like that's one of the coolest drum solos I've ever seen. Only because of the sweat involved in it. Like not that it was
Yeah,
technically
you're like really
incredible.
into sweat. This is one of your kinks, man. Like you're really into
Dude,
sweat, and I get it,
I because
But
I
like,
think that's rock and roll, man. When you push your body to the point of exhaustion, you're rocking out. That's
I'm
what
gonna.
that's the connection with me.
Okay, I'm gonna give a
It's not a
counterpoint to that.
kink.
Hey, you don't choose your kinks, man. They choose you. You know, but like the opposite to that is, and we're gonna eventually do an episode on the most famous instruments. But Russian Rio, uh, I think I want to say that was the Vapor Trails tour. It might have been Snakes and Arrows, 2003, something like that. Is that recording is incredible. Absolutely watch it. I think someone put it on YouTube. But the drum solo in that, the ephemeral, eternal Neil Peart and his 360-degree drum kit with gold hardware, looking like he's bored. Just absolutely shredding. I tell people all the time, it's like, dude, you don't know what it was like to see the old man go to work. Like he's not sweating. He's like just ripping everyone's faces off, and totally worth it. And kind of in the other direction because rather than working hard and sweating, he's in full Zen mode. Like full body Zen mode, and it's incredible to watch. And you can hear the crowd is like bristling while with just the drums going, which is really something else. All right, you got another one?
I think
Got
we
one to
call
end
it.
on.
I think we call it here, man. I
All right.
think this is definitely one we can return to.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments if you want to follow up on this, and we'll give you some cool stuff to listen to, or let us know if you have any that we should check out, any documentaries or concerts, because that's the other thing that we didn't really get into. I mean, we kind of did like with Woodstock and stuff, but there's other concerts that just got captured so perfectly
Yeah.
and so uniquely that I think they deserve
Incubus
to be.
at Red Rocks 2004. Incredible.
There you go. So I think we're at about time, and I think it's important to let y'all know. Oh wait, we got a deep dive.
Yeah.
We got a deep dive. I forgot about it. Dude. All right.
All right, so I want to talk about rhythm today, and there's a couple things. Yeah, so this is Dev's deep dive. I know we haven't done one of these in a while, but I'm gonna use a shaker and a tambourine, and just kind of keep time here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and like most people will hear that. It's common time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a great way to communicate with drummers is the old school boom cat. So boom cat, boom cat. That's Billie Jean. Boom cat, boom cat, right? And then you can change that. Boom cat, kaboom, boom, kaboom, boom, right? And there's a bunch of rhythms that people use all the time that I think are really important to know, and you can hear them all the time. And the first one is depending on how you learn it, you'll know it. So I'll go back 1, 2, 3, 4. I want candy, right? Or
hey, Bo Diddley.
I could touch your body. I know not everybody. Yeah, so Matt did it exactly. I would expect him to know this because of his background. In old school Western rock, a lot of people know that as the Bo Diddley rhythm, right? And it goes. Now that's in classic like percussion terms. That's called a 3/2 clave in terms of like Central American rhythms. And so if you listen to it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So that's the 3 and the 2, the 3/2 clave, right? Now you can hear that and like, hey, Bo Diddley, right? Like so that's their, or like I said, guess it would be nice if I would touch your body, right? It's used a lot. Now there's a couple ways you can do that with the boom cats. Boom cat, boom cat, or boom cat, boom. Like there's a lot of different ways you can do that on the drum kit and have it feel a little bit different. But there's a subsection of that is used all the time, which is you've got the 3s and the 2s, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. If you play just the 3 side, just the first half, the 3 side of the 3/2, you get this. Which we hear all the time. It's super useful if you're putting together, or if you'll hear it all the time in, like it works really great with kind of like, even like Gogo Bordello uses it all the time, but like it's a very driving beat that's not really a 4 on the floor. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4.
All I hear is California Uber Alice.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's all over the place, and once you know that, and you can, if you're playing with something, you're like, oh, this is really cool, and that's a good driving. We need a driving beat that's maybe a little bit syncopated. You can say, hey, play the 3 side of the 3/2 clave, or if you're ever find yourself clapping on the 1, you don't want to clap on the 1.
No.
You want to clap on the 2, 2, 3, 4, or you can add a. Try bringing in the 3 side of the 3/2 clave sometime. There's also the 2/3 clave where you switch them around. You play the 3 on the second half. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which works really, really well. But the 3 side of the 3/2 clave. Like you hear that all the time, and now that you hear it, if you didn't know before, now that you know it, you will hear it everywhere. It is so super powerful, and something that's really good to know.
That's awesome. There you go, man. Dev Deep Dive, and it's brought to you. Dev's Deep Dive is brought to you by 6 Tuning Pegs, providing technology solutions for guitarists and the rest of the world. Find out more at 6tuningpegs.com. That's the number 6, tuningpegs.com, for the love of guitar. Dude, that was good stuff, man.
Cool.
And I like. It's cool because that had nothing to do with tuning pegs, unless you're talking about drum tuners.
yeah. Just there's it's all connected.
It is.
But thanks. Yeah, we do this every week. I try to post a playlist of the artists about whom we've talked. This will be an interesting one because there'll be like Spinal Tap in there and stuff today.
Yeah.
But it should be pretty good. It's on onceuponatune.com. If you got any ideas for episodes or anything else, let us know in the comments, and we will see you next week. Cheers.